Okay, so today's Daf Yomi. We're recording the Daf Yomi for Shabbos Kodesh, which is Bava Basra, Kofu Amad Zayin, Bava Basra 137, and we're going to start on the bottom of 136b. Gemara has recorded a dispute between Rabbi Yochanan, who says, Kinyan Aperos, that if you acquire the fruits, if you own the fruit, it's like you own the goof, it's like you own the body itself. And Rish Lakish, who says, Kinyan Aperos, Lavka Kinyan Aguf Tami. And the Gemara says, well, we have a question against Rabbi Yochanan from a brayso on the last line of 136b. It says, Yachzru Yorshe, no saying that under these circumstances, where a person says, I'm going to give it to you, and after you it'll be to you, and after you to you, and then the second person dies before he can get to the third person, he goes back not to the first person, but to the heirs of the one who gave it in the first place. The no saying, the giver. So we see from here that the first person never really owned it because he just owned the kinyan aperos. He didn't own the guf. And so therefore, even though we have decided a position that kinyan aperos is kinyan aguf, this seems to be against Rabbi Yochanan, kinyan aperos lavka kinyan aguf. So therefore, the Gemara says on the bottom, on the top of 137a, this is actually a Tanai. There's actually a dispute amongst the Tanaim whether we say Kinyan Aperos, Kinyan Aguf dummy or not. Rabbi Yochanan says it is, Rish Lakish says it's not. Tanya Nechasi Lach Cha. If he says, I'm going to give my possessions to you, V'acharayach Leponi, and after you, they're going to go to this person, the Yarad Rishon, and the first guy goes along and he sold it. Basically, he went ahead and he sold it. So the first guy goes ahead and sells it. And he consumed it. The second one has the right to take it away from the purchasers, and that's like the position that he, even though he has the fruits, he doesn't own the essence. He didn't have the right to sell it. So we see from here, the Kinyan of Paris is Lafka Kinyan Aguf dummy. So, whereas Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, Eila Sheni Awamash Shir Rishon. He says the second person only has whatever the first person has left, and that seems to be Kinyan of Paris is like Kinyan Aguf dummy. So it seems that Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is like Rabbi Yochanan, and so therefore Rabbi Yochanan has a position to support himself. The Gemara says, there are many, but don't we have a contradictory source? Somebody says, my assets are to you, and after you, they're going to go to this other person. Yored Rishon Mocher V'ochal Divrei Rabbi. Then under these circumstances, it says the first guy goes out and sells it, and he consumes it, and that seems to be Kinyan Aperos Kinyan Aguf Tami. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, Ein Rishon Ela Achilas Peres Bavad. The first person only has the rights to the fruits. He doesn't have the right to the guf. So Kasha the Rebbe, the Rashbag, the Rashbag. We have a contradiction from Rebbe to Rebbe, Rashbag to Rashbag. So the Gemara says no. The Rebbe will Kasha in the first source where Rebbe holds like Reish Lakish, and in the where he says Kinyan Paraslav Kinyan Agufta. I mean, in the second source, he seems to be saying Kinyan Paras Kinyan Agufta. So how do we explain this? It's not a contradiction. Halagufa halapera. So in the first source, when it says Yar Rishon Machar Achal Sheni Motzi Miyad Al Kuchos, the position of Rebbe that's where he sold the guf, he sold the essence. But in the second source, where it states that he could sell it, that is where it's just for the payros. And the Rashbag will kasha that in the first source where Rashbag says he shouldn't sell it, that is lechatchila. But in the second source where Rashbag says that, in second source where he says Ein Rishon El Achilas Peres Bavad, that in the first source he says he has the right to sell it. That's b'di'evid. In the second source where it says Ein Rishon, and then in the second Ein Rishon El Achilas Peres Bavad, there he's talking lechatchila. I mean lechatchila. Ideally, he only has the fruits. But really, he should only have the fruits because that was the intent of the person who gave it. But technically speaking, the kinyan Paris is kinyan guf. So now the Gemara. Now the Gemara says, Amar Abaye, Ezehu Rasha Arum. So Abaye says, what's the definition of a crafty person? This is somebody who tells somebody, listen, this guy is giving it to you and after you to somebody else, but you really own it, so you could sell everything, and so nothing gets to the other guy. So he's giving him this advice where he's not even benefiting it. So that is considered hold on one second. Hold on one second. Ezehu Rasha Aram. What's the definition of a crafty person? That's a person who told this guy to sell it because he's getting involved and he has no benefit. And so therefore, he got this advice. The first person is not considered to be Rasha because even though he shouldn't do this, he's allowed to technically do it. So that's what Abaye says. He's allowed to sell it, but he shouldn't. I'm Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. The law is like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. That therefore, it's like Rabbi Yochanan. Kinyan Paris is kinyan aguf dummy, but ideally you shouldn't sell it. But he admits that if he was given this gift as like the gift of a shlimera, will also kum. What does that mean? It means to say he admits that if the person Shem Nisanan, that if the first person who got it gave it away via a shlimera gift, meaning to say the first guy got sick and he gave it to another person, and he says that after I die you'll get this. He's done nothing, and as a result of this, the second person gets the property when he dies. So Gemara says, "My time," but then you say the laws like Rav Shimon Gamliel that he could give it away. So why isn't it able to work in that circumstance? Amar Abaye, matana shlimera because the gift of the shlimera that only takes effect after he dies. So he says, "V'kvar kidmu acharecha," and that person who's supposed to inherit after you, he already got it. He got it simultaneous with death, whereas the shlimera gift only takes place after death. So therefore, it doesn't work. So the Gemara says, "Umi amar Abaye, does Abaye really say this? So Itmar didn't Abaye say matana shlimera meima saikana?" Abaye says, when does the shlimera gift take effect? Abaye amar im gmar misa. Rabba says la'achar gmar misa. So Abaye says it takes place simultaneously with the death. So how did Abaye me'ahi? Abaye actually recanted that position. So the Gemara says, "Mimaid me'ahi Abaye." How do we know Abaye recanted that position? Don't me'ha Abaye. Maybe he recanted the position that takes place, who says it takes place after death. So the Gemara says, don't assume that he recanted the position that says it takes place after death. The Tanam, because we learned in the Mishnah in Gittin, 72a, if a person says, Zegitech emesi, Zegitech emesi, so he says, this is your get if I die, or he says, Zegitech mechol, this is your get from this illness. Zegitech achar misa, he says, this is your get after death. Oh, Amar Kum, he hasn't said anything. The get doesn't take effect because you can't have a get that take place after death. So we see from this that if he makes the get contingent upon his death, then his intent is to say that it takes effect after the death. And so therefore we see the gift of shlimera, which is also basically contingent upon his death, takes effect only after death. So the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Zera, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, halacha Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. The law is like the Rabbi Yochanan said the law is like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Kinyan Paris is kinyan aguf. Va'afilu hayu bahen avadim, v'otzion l'cheres. And meaning to say, a guy gets the avadim and he frees them, it still takes effect. So the Gemara says, pshita, it's obvious. If he could sell it, of course, if he has avadim, it takes effect. So the Gemara says, why would slaves be any different? So you might have said, well, listen, I didn't give you this gift to do prohibition with it. Same thing. The Gemara says, Kamash one, we see. So he says, we see from here. So he says, I might have said I gave it to you not to do an avera with it, and even though he's doing the avera with it by freeing the slaves, nevertheless, it's going to take effect. So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Yochanan, even if you took this gift and you made it into tachrichin, shrouds for a dead body, it still takes effect. So the Gemara says, Pshita, it's obvious. No, Malutami might have said, I didn't give it to you to make it into something that was forbidden to have any benefit. The tachrichin, you can't have any benefit from it. I mean to say, the guy might have said, I wanted you to enjoy my property, not to use it for your own benefit. So therefore, you might have said that. Kamash Moan, no, he can do it unrestricted. So now the Gemara says, Darash Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda, Esrog Zen Nasim Matana. A guy says, I'm giving you this Esrog as a gift, and after you, I'm giving this to this person, so he says, I'm giving you this esrog as a gift, and after you go to that person, the the first person took the esrog to fulfill the mitzvah of esrog of our talmidim. According to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, it works. According to Rabbi, it doesn't work. So therefore, according to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, it can use the esrog, but not according to Rabbi. So Maz Kavar Nachman bar Yitzchak. I come will plead Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Hasam. Where do they argue there? Only in the case of Kinyan Paris, Kinyan Guftami. Mar Savar, Kinyan Paris, Kinyan Guf, Mar Savar, Kinyan Paris, Kinyan Guf. So that's where they argue. But in this case, you may put Lonafik Bay. You want to say Lamai Avina anyway. If you're going to tell him that he can't fulfill his mitzvah with it, then why else would he have it in the first place? Obviously, he has just to fulfill his mitzvah. Everybody says he can fulfill his mitzvah. So what's the question? If he sold it or ate it, that's a machokas din reshbag. According to Rabbi, and so therefore, if he doesn't have the right to eat it or sell it, or according to Rashbag, he does. So the Gemara says, Amar Rabba Barapuna, Achen Shekanu Esrog Betfusa Sabais. Let's say you have brothers that they inherited an estate and there was an esrog in it, or they used the money to buy an esrog. But one of them could take the esrog and use it. If he would have been able to eat it, he would have fulfilled his obligation. But otherwise, he doesn't. This is only where there is an esrog for each and every one of a parish or rimon lo. But if there was only a quince or a pomegranate, then for the other brothers, you can't. One brother can't take the esrog without his brother's permission. So Amar Rava said, esrog zeh natul lecha b'matana. It says the person says, I'm giving you this esrog as a gift. On the condition you have to return it to me. If the person takes it and uses it, and if he returns it, it fulfills his obligation. If he doesn't return it, he has not fulfilled his obligation, because part of the stipulation of the gift was he have to return it. We see from here a fundamental idea that even though it's a gift that you have to return, that in effect is going to be considered a gift. So the Gemara says, there was a woman who owned a palm tree in the land of Rabbi Barba. Every time she would come to harvest its produce, he would get upset. So basically, this woman owned the palm tree on the land of Rabbi Barba. Every time she would come to harvest it, he would get upset with her. So therefore, she said to him, "I'm giving you this tree all the years of your life." No cotton. So Rabbi Barbai went and gave it to his minor son because she can't get it back from him. So Amar Rafuna Brady Rav Yeshua Mishum da Asam in Mulai, because you came from the Mamulites. Amrisu Mila Mulyasa. I am stating something that was blemished. Because you came from Mamulites, i.e., you're descendant of Eli the Kohen, and they were supposed to be cut short, therefore you said something that's improper. You remember Gamliel, who said that if you sell it, it's valid. That's only if you sold it to somebody else, but not to your own. But if it goes back to himself, whoa, it's not a valid sale. So even though you gave it to your son, it's basically like yourself, and so therefore it's not a valid sale. Amar Rav Nachman, if a person says, I'm giving you this gift as this ox as a gift, on the condition you return it to me, if he consecrated it and then he returned it, it's consecrated and returned. So, but what's he supposed to do with it? So basically, gifting was valid, and so the consecration of the ox during that time takes effect. So Rav Nachman says, Maya Hadre. Maya Chasre. So he said, what did he return? It's consecrated. He can't use it. So he says, Maya Chasre. What did he deprive from him? He gave him an ox. Amravashi Chazinan I Amrwe Amanasha Tachsirui Hadre. But I Amrwe Amanasha Tachsirui. So he said, did he say on the condition he returned it? Well, he returned it, but he said, condition returned to me. Well, then it's not able to be used, and so he didn't properly return it. So now we'll stop here. This is our Daf Yomi for Shabbos Kodesh. A big shikayach.
Thank you very much. Thank you.